Hey everybody, TacticAngel here, back on the PlayStation 4. Taking a look at a replay. Today we're going to be on Fault Line. We're going to be with JC, and with him is Mark, aka White, a community contributor. You've all seen JC on my channel before. He is a fantastic player. He doesn't send me all of his videos, so if you do want to see some fantastic examples of World Warships Legends gameplay, then I suggest you head on over to his channel down in the description. JC is going to be in the Edinburgh. We have seen JC in the Edinburgh before. That was way back when the Edinburgh came out and when he was running around in a stock Edinburgh. So today we are going to see what he can do with a fully upgraded Royal Navy cruiser. And I'm going to go ahead, put his commander up on the screen. You can see a little offbeat in terms of his choices there. We don't have reaching out. And you can see the only thing that JC's really paying attention to is his stealth. So this, like my Wichita review, is really about an inside sort of cruiser, something that gets in there and can fend off destroyers and take on ships at more aggressive ranges. So starting out here, you can see he's moving on up with Mark and finding a little bit of cover behind this island. Those torpedoes are just really to play the odds in terms of where people are probably going to end up. If that guy's going full ham, then he might just sail into some of those torpedoes. In a Megami, probably don't want to be that aggressive. And the Megami's probably not a great choice for a ship if you want to play an inside sort of cruiser. Edinburgh is now uniquely poised in that position because it still retains a 30mm bow. So unlike the Chapayev, it can bounce pretty much anything it's going to face, at least right now. Now I didn't manage to get that Megami with his torpedoes, but by the time the Megami sees him, he's pretty well broadside to JC, and oof, just punishes him with 4 citadels there. That pretty much ruins your whole day, and unfortunately he did not make the turn, considering a little bit too much whether or not he wanted to actually shoot at JC. And though he probably wasn't going to last very long, Mark does finish him off with some torpedoes. Now, you can see there is a Bismarck over there, and JC is very well aware of that. My guess is right now he was considering whether or not that particular battleship wanted to go through the middle of that gap. It would have been really interesting to see what JC would do if he decided to do that. Instead, there's always the Colorado, and though JC doesn't have extended range, and he doesn't have anything really put into accuracy other than his 4th slot choice, he's still going to be able to land plenty of shells, even at medium range, on that Colorado. Already whittling a nice bit of damage off of him there. You can see upwards of 5,000 damage per salvo. That one, not quite so good, a little too far back on the ship, but, you know, nobody's perfect. God knows I miss all sorts of shots. Anyway, now we see Hamas. Looks like he might be trying to make a run on the base. JC's going to pick him up, and obviously these British light cruisers are really ideal for taking on pretty much any destroyer because the short fuse just tears through these little ships, and you get a lot of pretty good penetration damage instead of just overpens. So he does not last all that long. JC is inching towards this island. My guess is to try to save himself from some of the horrific amounts of potential HE damage that he can take if the Bismarck's secondaries actually manage to hit him. His approach on the Bismarck is going to leave just the bow to shoot at, which means he should be able to bounce the Bismarck's main battery. and I'm not talking about what JC just did there. He was essentially going for full pens against the forward part of that ship because he would get the most damage from it. Launches his torpedoes, doesn't really even have time to look to see how they went because he's immediately confronted with an even bigger problem, and that is this Tashkent, which reads the line a little too literally. JC slams on the brakes. That would have been a good opportunity to shoot some widespreads from the Tashkent. Would have been a lot harder for JC to dodge there, but that is a non-traditional opinion. And now that has basically left JC with 1 kill and 138,000 damage, taking huge chunks out of that Mogami, huge chunks out of that Moss, huge chunks out of that Bismarck. So just fantastic game so far. And now he's got a battleship alone in an alley. Ordinarily you wouldn't think this is a great time to charge, but what's happening with the rest of JC's team is they're not doing so well. And my guess is he wants to get out here so that he can make a difference as quickly as possible without leaving this ship alone, so that he can get back into the fray. This torpedo launch is pretty interesting because it clearly gives away that he's shooting torpedoes. Interesting to think whether he should have held on to them a little longer. And our Colorado friend does do a pretty good job in terms of avoiding them, but it puts him on an inexorable path towards that island. And he's simply not maneuverable enough to get out of the way of the island. You can see more good shot placement by JC, taking advantage of the soft bow and stern section. And, you know, each time he does that, he's coming away with 3,000 plus damage. Now this is starting to get awkward, but you can see the whole point here is got to get around behind the guy because it's going to give JC a little bit of time to hopefully finish off this particular Colorado without taking any shots from the main guns. He's getting rather close, and is this going to turn into an awkward ram? No, not even close. Does manage to finish him off at the very end, and he was getting pretty good damage there, but probably a little less so than if he was able to exploit some of the softer sections of the ship. You saw him aiming upper belt. That's because he's probably still not going to be able to score a citadel, even at that range, against an American battleship. It's not impossible, but better than getting shatters. JC's playing the odds there, and he played them exactly right because he didn't end up reverse ramming the Colorado, which obviously would have been really bad for his health. But now you can see Mark has moved himself up to the cap, and JC is following along to help do whatever he needs to do up there. Most likely in a game like this, JC, and I would know because we frequently division together, would be happy to contest the base, maybe even cap it out. Just because if the game's this close, you do want to make sure that you have the point advantage, and right now, since Mark is sitting in that cap, the enemy isn't accruing any points, and if they won by capping the base, that wouldn't be the saddest thing ever, and you could hardly blame him at 193,000 damage. He has definitely earned a win. And somewhere along here, he has picked up a high caliber as well as 87 secondary hits, which is an impressive number even for a German battleship, much less a Royal Navy cruiser. I don't know what's happening here, but that's annoying. It's like hydraulics on the ship. So JC is getting pretty close to the cap, but it looks like this game might end by the time he gets there. You can see on the starboard side he has lost his torpedo launchers, so that is kind of a sad story. He can still use them to gauge what direction ships are going and a little bit how fast they're going. So, still useful, even if they don't actually work. And now he's just setting up to deal with this Scharnhorst. Now, it doesn't look as though he is going to be able to actually get the cap, because the Scharnhorst is going to sail in just before the end of that capture. So now they definitely have to deal with the Scharnhorst. JC pops a smoke, and now he's able to pretty much abuse that German battleship without really having to worry too much that he's going to get shot in return. He could get blind fired, but most people aren't terribly good at it. I am certainly not. And even then, you don't get the advantages of the target lock on, so you get kind of weird dispersion sometimes. Now we've got one more ship to worry about, and that is the Tirpitz. JC shoots, and you can see he gets spotted, and he is smart enough to know that he did not get spotted by the Tirpitz. His sea detectability, even while firing in smoke, is beneath that. He immediately hits sonar and drives out. This is that's just a pro play all around. He starts putting lots of shells into that Yudachi, demonstrating some, good accuracy here. And just wrecks him there at the end. Up to 4 kills with 224,000 damage. But the game's not quite over yet. They still have that Tirpitz. Unfortunate for the Tirpitz is he's in a situation now where there are 2 ships that he can't spot that have more points than he does. So, honestly, in a situation like this, if you weren't sure that you were actually going to win, you could run away, and that would be good enough, because the Tirpitz, with 1 minute and 33 seconds, doesn't have enough time to get down to your base, so the game's pretty well won as long as you don't throw it away. But rounding the corner, you see JC's going to start pumping some shells into him. It looks like that Yudachi left a little bit of a smoke screen, which is now working against his own teammate. As JC continues to just pour damage into that Tirpitz. Now the Tirpitz has spotted him thanks to the range. Turning his bow in, it's going to save him from the AP damage from the main battery. It's not going to do too much when it comes to the secondary battery because, of course, that will probably go ahead and do at least some damage, if not full damage. And Mark finishes him off with a torpedo that ends up being the win. Just a fantastic game from both of them, actually, with JC and Mark both scoring 4 kills. There you can see where they placed. Just a phenomenal result for JC, though. 4,353 base XP, and a really great example of what you can do with a cruiser that isn't just sitting behind an island and trying to shoot at maximum range. So Edinburgh, pretty decent brawler if you know what you're doing. If you wanted to play against JC in this ship, you should shoot lots of HE at him. That actually will whittle down the Edinburgh fairly quickly. But as always, fantastic game. Thank you for sending it to me. If you do want to check out JC's channel or Mark, aka White, I have left some links to their channels down in the description. Thank you everybody for watching today, and I'll see you on the next one.